So, if we didn't already know, Hollywood is demonic. There is no question about it. And honestly, they seem to know that we know this about them. Yet, instead of trying to taper back on what is obviously a very negative image to have, especially when the vast majority of the country has some sort of belief in God and Jesus Christ, they choose to lean into it. Despite Christianity being the leading religion in this country, their favorite person to mock seems to be Jesus Christ. And the latest middle finger that they seem to be wanting to intentionally give to Christians has been choosing to cast Wicked's Cynthia Erivo as Jesus Christ in the Hollywood Bowl's revival of Jesus Christ Superstar. So Cynthia Erivo is playing Jesus Christ, and Adam Lambert is seen there playing Judas. So that is what we are going to discuss today. But before we get into it, I am Outspoken Samantha, and I would love it if you would hit the like button on this video and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. And please leave your respectful comments below. So I'm sure you all heard at some point, or maybe you didn't because you have a life outside of social media, unlike me. But it was announced earlier this summer that Cynthia Erivo would be playing Jesus Christ in this production. And if you ask anybody in Hollywood or anyone with who generally only exercises the use of their single leftist brain cell, what their thoughts on this decision might be, of course, they are going to say that this is inclusive because that's the excuse that they always use to go against pretty much anything that represents traditionalism, conservatism, Christianity, or just whatever it is that they want to mock that day. Now, before we get into what I think is going on here, let's look at a couple of clips as to what this has looked like, because this has definitely generated a lot of backlash, as I'm sure that they were expecting, but it doesn't seem like they care so much about that anymore. But let's have a look at this.
For you, yeah, I'm still waiting for you, yeah. Every time I look at you.
So that was Cynthia Erivo as Jesus Christ and Adam Lambert as Judas, and she's singing at him to get out. This next one is Cynthia Erivo, and I'm not sure who the woman is as the actress, but that is supposedly Mary Magdalene. This last one is Cynthia Erivo carrying a cross and wearing a crown of thorns as Judas sings at So that is what we are dealing with here. And obviously, the responses to this casting were appropriate by the sane and rational and moral people who actually value and understand this story. And then the reaction by the moral people is pretty much as expected as well. So, this is an article that talks about this casting decision and a little bit of those responses. It says groundbreaking actress Cynthia Erivo cast as Jesus in Jesus Christ Superstar sparks controversy among conservative Christians. So Cynthia Erivo is no longer it says Cynthia Erivo is no stranger to taking on iconic roles, from her Tony-winning performance as Celie in The Color Purple to her portrayal of Elphaba in the highly anticipated Wicked movie. Erivo has consistently proven her ability to bring depth and nuance to her characters. Her casting as Jesus in Jesus Christ Superstar is yet another example of her breaking barriers in the entertainment industry. However, this casting decision has not been without its detractors. The Christian Post article highlights the outrage from some conservative Christians, with one pastor quoted as saying, "This is blasphemy. Casting a bisexual woman as Jesus is a direct attack on Christian values." The publication's framing of Erivo's sexuality and faith as central to the controversy underscores the ongoing tension between progressive representation in media and traditionalist viewpoints, especially as it pertains to conservative Christians who voted for Trump. Because what is a liberal, progressive, leftist position unless they can mention Trump? Here's the thing. It's one thing to want to put your own spin on different characters, like casting Ariel from The Little Mermaid with a black actress or turning Snow White into a feminist. And those things are clearly obnoxious, but it is what it is. But Jesus Christ is not just an iconic character. He wasn't created by Disney or Hollywood. He is obviously a sacred, holy figure who has religious significance and meaning that spans centuries, that goes back to the beginning of time, to put it very, very simply. To treat him as just another character that you can just rewrite and recast as if he's open to whatever interpretation determined by modern trends and ideas, that's just vile, and it shows how little respect that they truly have for Christians in general. Obviously, I have not seen this production, and I definitely don't plan to, but according to others, as I've been listening to people that have a little bit more insight than I do, the themes throughout the entire production seem to have been rewritten to highlight progressive leftist anti-Christian ideas. So I appreciated what this gal had to say just about, what they kind of how they kind of rewrite this story to fit the modern narrative, and it's even worse than I thought.
This disgusting play is a mockery of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. So, of course, they cast Cynthia Erivo to play Jesus. In the musical, Judas is seen as a hero, and he's trying to stop Jesus from going too far. And Jesus is portrayed as not understanding his mission and what he's here to do. Judas thinks that Jesus is letting fame get to his head, and he's trying to stop him from going too far and being too political. And Mary Magdalene is portrayed as being in love with him. The disciples are portrayed as groupies, and it doesn't even show the resurrection. It ends with him on the cross. But at this point, who's even surprised? Because Hollywood is so demonic. Like, I can just literally look at this clip and just tell it's demonic from the get-go just by how everything looks. And that doesn't even get into how blasphemous it is at the fact that Jesus is being played by Cynthia Erivo. This is so demonic and blasphemous, but I can't say that I'm surprised. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.
So you guys let me know if you have seen it and if that interpretation of it is correct. But it's the word inclusive that we really need to focus on for a minute, because it's the true definition of that word that demonstrates exactly what this relentless mockery is really about. So on the left, they have been sold this idea that being inclusive means that because America is such a racially diverse country, that we need to see representation of all minorities everywhere in order to make sure that nobody gets their feelings hurt. And of course, the left never question anything and they just eat up what they're spoon fed. So they're going to buy that. They've also been sold the idea that inclusivity is necessary because minorities have been historically oppressed by white people. So minorities, because they have to live under this oppressive system where all of the laws and the systems have clearly been designed to solely benefit white people. In order to correct that, it's their time to shine. And it's our job to step back and make sure that that happens. To the left, inclusivity also means if you see whiteness represented or even celebrated anywhere, it's offensive, it's a sign of white supremacy, and it clearly means that you want to erase minorities, as we saw with all of this backlash to the Sydney Sweeney ad. And their definition of inclusivity also gives them permission to be discriminatory against people based on their skin color, even though they don't see it that way because we're white and therefore we deserve it. In their minds, they're just standing up for the marginalized and the oppressed. And it makes them feel good because they really think that they have accomplished something truly virtuous, when in reality, it's a movement that requires as little effort as possible. Basically means if you're white, be ashamed of yourself, take a seat. And if you're anything but white, you can come forward and be seen everywhere. And boom, they've all done this great service to humanity and they can all go home patting themselves on the back for their activism. However, what inclusivity really means by the people who have pushed this idea onto society, the true goal is anti-traditionalism, and it's destroying anything that has made America and the West strong. Anything that promotes a moral foundation, specifically the moral foundation that the US and our country values were founded upon, including our Judeo-Christian foundation. It needs to be mocked, it needs to be belittled, rewritten, and basically shoved under the rug. This includes a constitution that needs to be rejected because it was written by white men, and any laws that are based on our constitutional values that have been geared toward equality and equal opportunity. These laws were implemented by white men based on Christian values, and therefore it's all inherently evil and needs to be destroyed. People that have been pushing this stuff, they don't want to destroy it because it's actually bad. Quite the opposite. They want these things destroyed because they are inherently good and empowering, and they recognize people's individualism and the power that they have as an individual person. And they can see that this kind of system benefits their personal choices where they're not going to be held back by a group identity like we had when slavery was actually in this country and before we eliminated discrimination laws against Black people. Because prior to that time, all Black people, regardless of what they were doing, were seen as lesser. And a lot of people felt justified in harassing and attacking them, regardless of whether or not they had personally done anything to deserve it. But that mindset was largely eliminated for a long time, and we could see the value of the Constitution in theory and in practice, and the benefit that it had to all people. And we could recognize the value of the laws that provide everybody with equal opportunity, that don't favor one racial identity over another, and the benefit of a Christian value system for everyone, regardless of all of these other superficial characteristics. So what our country was founded upon, it does create true independence and empowerment. And a true understanding of these things creates a society of people who do not want to depend on the government and who do not want centralized power. And the people that want to destroy these things understand their value as well, which is why they want to get rid of them. The goal is to dismantle everything that they're currently effectively using their sheep to dismantle. So the people that are pushing these false narratives on them can rebuild their own version of America on a new set of moral values. Their leaders want an America where the elite get to pick the winners and the losers based on a group identity and control everybody by incentivizing compliance with the dictators. So, all of that to say, that's where this relentless mockery of Jesus Christ, Christianity, and whiteness in general comes in. It's not about progress. It's about dismantling and destroying and breaking apart what has been good and right and has created a strong country and recreating a society of people that are easier to control. Anyway, I would love to hear all of your guys' thoughts on this in the comments below. Let me know what your thoughts, theories, and opinions are. I love it when people are respectful, but I guess, we don't always get what we want. So drop your thoughts and opinions below. Keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one.